What? It's video. I'm recording them all.
Really?
Yeah, really. See? Look. Technology.
Ready to go?
Yeah, I'm ready to go.
All right. Afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Keegan Edwards, Susanna Barnett, Quinn Baxter, and Amy Jones-Sumantu over here. We're going to talk a little bit about Marcellus shale gas and why that's right for America right now. So I want to start with a question. Have you ever lost your keys? You're running around the place, you got somewhere to go. America right now, we've lost our keys. We've got places to go. We just can't find the keys to get there. We've been borrowing and paying for our neighbor's keys for years now. It's getting more and more expensive. But it turns out we've had our keys in our hand the whole time. The keys to fixing rampant unemployment. The keys to a more energy-independent future. The keys to cleaner, healthier ways of powering America. Those keys are domestic natural gas production, specifically production of shale gas in the Marcellus Shale Formation in the Northeast. Today, according to the State Department of Labor and Industry, nearly 239,000 direct and indirect jobs across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania alone are supported by the natural gas industry. This is increasing at a rate of 14% per year from 2010 to 2015. These are jobs that exist because we are producing Pennsylvania's abundant natural resources. Nationally, according to IHS Global Insight researchers, in 2010, unconventional gas activity supported 1 million jobs. The Marcellus Shale alone will support 800,000 jobs by 2015. Take a look at the impact of the natural gas industry in other states. Nearly $5 billion in economic growth in Ohio by 2014, attributable to the natural gas industry. Almost 37,000 jobs in West Virginia were gas industry jobs in 2011. These jobs aren't going overseas or to some international gulf somewhere. They stay right here in America. These are important, abundant, and diverse employment opportunities exclusive to the natural gas industry right here in America. Natural gas development from the Marcellus Shale Formation is creating tens of thousands of good-paying jobs across the region at a time where they're needed most, where they're needed most. From well tenders to roughnecks, to truck drivers and landscapers, lawyers and environmental scientists, and beyond, many of these jobs just require a high school degree, while others require some level of advanced training or a college degree. But again, these jobs are real. They're available right now with no delays. Investment in Marcellus Shale jobs can turn these middle-of-the-pack states, Ohio, West Virginia, and Pennsylvania, into employment rate leaders in America. Talk a little bit about how locally available Marcellus Shale gas is.
The United States spends on average about $460 billion on imported oil every year. Over half of this is from countries in the Western Hemisphere, while 42% of these countries are in Africa or the Persian Gulf. As a whole, in 2011, we purchased oil from roughly 80 different countries, which means that our nation is dependent on all of these countries because we do not have enough fuel sources that are local. The 5 countries that we purchase the most oil from are Canada, Saudi Arabia, Venezuela, Mexico, and Nigeria. With the exception of Canada, these are all countries whose relationships with the United States are tenuous at best, and whose governments cannot necessarily be relied upon to spend this money effectively. For instance, we could be using this money to fund AIDS research and malaria research in Nigeria, or to work with Mexico to improve border security, and instead we're using it to buy oil. If the United States replaced just 7% of our oil with natural gas, we would save consumers $25.6 billion each year. And much more importantly, by using natural gas from the Marcellus Shale region, our country would save $160 billion a year. We could do so much money with this that would improve our country. This money could be used to fully staff and operate 5 hospitals a year, or it could be used to send over 94,000 children to school each year. The use of natural gas from Marcellus Shale regions would be a good thing for our country, and it would lead definitely to improvements. And not only is it a less expensive fuel source, it is also cleaner than oil.
Okay, so by using natural gas, we actually emit less CO2 in the atmosphere than coal and oil. almost less than 50% of CO2. We also, with coal and oil, we release other sorts of emissions such as sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxide, which can lead to acid rain, and that can harm our environment. That is currently happening over in the eastern U.S. So natural gas virtually emits no sulfur dioxide and 80% less nitrogen oxide, leading to less acid rain. Also, when we use coal and oil, we also create lots of smog, which is actually little particles of ash that go up into our atmosphere and create pollution. And with less smog, we also will have less respiratory problems for civilians and much better air quality. These are some examples of other countries that use coal, and so which environment would you rather live in? This one or that one? Also going along with the idea of coal, there are many dangers in mining coal. There's a lot of pollution obviously associated. There's also many coal mine disasters. For example, people who work in coal mines they face many accidents, such as leaks of poisonous gases, such as hydrogen sulfide, explosive gases like methane, dust explosions, mining-induced seismicity, and the mines can collapse on them. One very dire situation in Centralia, Pennsylvania, is that a coal mine caught on fire in 1962. This means that this coal mine fire is still burning and has actually rendered that city unlivable and a neighboring city as well. It is so severe that even this horror flick called Silent Hill was based on that. Also, miners who work in coal mines breathe in coal dust, which leads to illness called black lung. The government actually uses $35 billion for medical expenses for these coal miners. Think of how much money we could save and use and invest that in schools and hospitals if we stop using coal.
Okay, so natural gas has historically had the reputation of being fairly expensive, even as expensive as wind energy. Fortunately for us, this is no longer the case. In fact, natural gas is now as cheap as it was in 1976, and I defy you to come up with another resource in which that is the case. This is because we have recently made some huge technological advances in shale oil harvesting. We've gotten better at dealing shale gas. We've gotten better at dealing with extracting shale, which means there's now much more of it available to us in the United States. Gas is only going to get cheaper if we open up the Marcellus field. It's a huge, huge asset that we need to be looking into. In the entire alternative energy industry, so basic capitalist principle here. If you want an industry to thrive, you need competition in that industry. Shoving the prices of natural gas down by investing in the Marcellus shale field is going to cause other industries to have to compete with them. They're going to need to compete if they want to survive. Now, the private sector is also investing like mad in wind energy. It's developing quickly. But if you want that to be pushed forward, you need to invest in other industries as well. This is why we need to look at natural gas. It'll help push forward everybody who's trying to solve this problem. Now, natural gas is, as I've said, it's much, much cheaper than wind energy. It's actually wind is actually 35% more expensive than gas energy as it exists right now. So very simple math here, and just bear with me. If I had a set amount of money and I bought 24 hours of gas energy, with that, I'd only be able to get 15 and a half hours of wind energy out of the same investment. Okay, simpler math, and again, bear with me. If I gave you a set amount of money to go buy apples at the farmer's market, and you went to one stand and you said, I would like to buy apples, and the guy said, well, for that amount of money, I'm going to give you 100 apples. And then you went across the street and you went to the other stand and he said, for that amount of money, I'll give you 65 apples. Which one would you invest in? Where would you buy the apples? It seems relatively simple to me. Both apples are going to feed you exactly the same way. The idea that we're seriously considering buying apples from the other stand with wind energy is a huge problem. That would be a travesty. That's a terrible mistake. The other thing that we should consider is this picture here, which I know all of us have already seen, which is the now retooled power substation that the University of Oregon is relying on. We recently just spent $50 million to retool this thing so that it can use natural gas. This is true not only here, but take it as an example. This happens all over the country in all kinds of industries. We have spent so much money on infrastructure for natural gas that at this point it would be a huge waste to just switch over to something else just because we decided that wind energy was a better idea. So the last thing, we need to be careful with wind energy because it's completely unknown territory. And when you're dealing with any kind of unknown territory, you need to be smart, right? So this is obviously what we don't want to have happen. Wind turbines immolating themselves.
Unlike gas, it doesn't blow up.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Just clarify that.
One instance where gases explode. One.
Okay, later.
Anyway, so we need to be careful about wind energy, right? It's unknown territory. So if we're going to be smart, in the case of wind energy, that means we need to wait. We need to wait because wind energy hasn't been developed to a point where we can rely on it and where it can replace something that is as sustainable as natural gas. So I already talked a bit about costs with how much cheaper natural gas is than wind energy. But consider the alternative, where we ignore the Marcellus Shale field and we immediately invest in wind energy. This means that natural gas isn't going to be as cheap as it could be, and wind producers, knowing that they don't have to compete with how cheap natural gas is, are going to jack up the price because they don't have anybody to compete with. Right, so immediately the price of wind energy goes up. We don't need that. We don't want that. We don't have the money to spend on that right now. In addition, the turbines don't actually put out as much electricity as they're advertised to put out. It turns out they just don't do what they say they're going to do. That's called a lie in any other facet of life, right? So next to that, they all need gas as a backup because wind doesn't go forever, right? Wind stops, the turbine quits turning, and you still need electricity. So you have to turn on a gas power plant. Now, a gas plant works exactly like a car does. It uses more energy when it's starting than if it's just going already. So you're using the natural gas that you would be using anyway inefficiently. It's an inefficient use of something that we already have and can use better. In addition, these things, unless they are kept up extremely well, they become very noisy, and people have serious problems with them, which actually ties into the next problem, which is that they're expensive and have huge environmental footprints. Okay, unlike a gas plant or unlike any other kind of plant, you can't put them somewhere where nobody has to look at them. You can't put them somewhere where we don't have to deal with it. You have to put them on top of hills where everybody can see them for miles around. It destroys what's already there and what's already beautiful. So investing in wind might be fine way, way, way down the road. Like way down the road. But as it is right now, that would be a huge mistake. It's just completely premature technology.
So continuing on the kind of this theme of environmental footprint, talk a little bit about hydraulic fracturing. And I just want you, before I get started, to look at this poster for kind of a seminar that was held. It's called The Truth and Consequences of Fracking, and it shows a guy drinking a glass of what appears to be mud. So I just want to talk about a couple facts here. Fracking fluid is 99.5% water and sand. Those other 0.5% are the chemicals that you hear so much about. The statutes that regulate fracking operations include the Oil and Gas Act of 2012, the Clean Streams Law, the Air Pollution Control Act, and the Solid Waste Management Act. It's not like we're just running out into rampant territory here. We have regulations for locating wells, preparing wells, drilling wells, withdrawing from the wells, storing and restoring water. And you may have seen these videos of people lighting their faucets on fire and considering that they're saying that their water is contaminated. But I wanted to assure you that water resources are protected at every stage of the fracking process. But don't take my word for it. This is Lisa Jackson. She's an EPA administrator. Pay no attention to the Fox buildup, but this is a congressional testimony that was held last year. Listen very carefully to what she says.
It's inexpensive, has a low carbon footprint, and is an American source of energy. Some environmental groups argue the production technique known as fracking, which shoots waters and chemicals into rock, to free the gas is dangerous for water supplies. The EPA is conducting a study which creates uncertainty for producers, and that brought this question.
Is there any evidence that hydraulic fracturing, however, can affect aquifers and water supplies?
There's evidence that it can certainly affect them. I am not aware of any proven case where the fracking process itself affected water, although there are investigations ongoing.
No proven cases of...
No proven cases. 0 proven cases of contaminated water thanks to the fracturing process. So now let's go back to this poster here. Does this not seem a little ridiculous to you guys? This seems like contaminated water. That's the imagery that's supposed to be brought up in your head. This isn't a lobbyist talking. This isn't a special interest group talking. This is the Environmental Protection Agency and one of its administrators talking. And she's saying no proven cases. So don't fear the hype when it comes to fracking.
So going back to what Klein said about wind energy and how costly it is, with the infrastructure that we have currently, we wouldn't have to change very much at all to use natural gas to provide us electricity. If we use wind, again, like Quinn was saying, we would have to build new infrastructure to make sure that we could use that energy created. So with that money saved by not building newer infrastructure, we could, again, provide more funding for schools and hospitals.
So when you look at the overall package of natural gas investment, that it's efficient, it's clean, it's safe, and it's cheap. I think it's time for America to stop looking for its future and start driving towards a more energy efficient future. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
We're doing Q&A?
No.
Cool.
We'll have a discussion at the end. Okay, Dragon Team. Go reverse the lies about wind energy.